Hello. In this example, we are going to create an application which creates squares and circles and also deletes them. We also want to count them as many squares as you make. We want to keep a score of it. If you delete it, we want them to be deducted. We would also want the shapes to be labeled, and also we want to give them position in this sheet. So we have these different buttons here, and we are going to write the macros, the VBA code in developer, Visual Basic. So we will go and insert a module here. So once you've inserted this module, we'll first start with option explicit. So we are going to give two variables, which are num squares and number circles, which will count the number of circles and squares. So we will make that public. After we do this, we are going to write a sub procedure for the button create square. So we will start for that. So you write sub create square, press enter. So we have written the code here. The code here says that we input the width of the square and also the height of the square. So the default value is going to be 50. And also for the square, we have the function MSO, and these values here that you see are the upper left hand corner coordinates of the Excel window. So once you have inputted the values for the width and the height, the message box will show that your square has been created. Since that we want to count the number of squares that are being made, we add number of squares plus 1 to the number of squares already existing once you create one. And then the message box will output saying that you now have as many squares in your worksheet. So that is your code. Now we need to show that number of squares is 0 in the worksheet here. So in this workbook, we have written this private sub procedure where it shows that number of squares are 0 and number of circles are 0 initially. Once you are done with that, you can go back to your module, and we will now create for the next button called create circle. So now for create circle, you will need a radius, and the rest will be the same, and also this function MSO shape rectangle will then be MSO shape oval. So we will just copy this sub procedure and make changes in it. So here we have just the radius here instead of the width and the height. So we ask the user to enter the radius, and we have the default value of radius as 50. We've used the function MSO shape oval here, and once the circle is created, you tell the user that it has been created, and also the number of circles value becomes plus 1, and then you output showing that the number of circles to the user. So once the create circle button is done, we next have the delete square and delete circle buttons. So for these, we will write sub delete square. So here we use the selection.delete function, and once it gets deleted, we want to subtract it from our total number of squares so that the user knows exactly how many squares are left now. Similarly, we will write for circles. So we will write delete circle and just change this to circle. Alright, so once these two are created, our next button is the label button. So we will write sub label shape. Here we have a variable called text, which is a string, since we are asking the user to enter a label for the shape. But our default text is going to be square1, and then we use selection.characters.text is equal to text function. Our next button is going to be the position shape. So we want the square or the circle to be positioned in one of the cells here, which will make it easier to say that it lies in A12 cell. So we want it to be, suppose, in A12 in this cell. So we will position it accordingly. So we will call this label position. So here the position value will be given by the user. So it says please enter cell name where you would like to position a shape, and the default value is A12. So you set this place as the range, it's a position. Position is a range here. So you set the place. Select, use the function selection cut. So it's cut and then it's pasted at that position. So these are the 6 sub procedures for the buttons here. So once we've written down all our sub procedures, we can then assign them. Assign these. So this is called the create square. So you can similarly do for the rest. We have assigned all these buttons, they are macros, respective macros. So we will first create a square. So the default value is 50 for the width. For the height it's 50. So that's our square here. We will next create a circle. Default radius is 50. Click OK. So the circle has been created. Now we want to give this square a label. So we select it and then click on label shape, and the default value is square1. So you click OK. For this you can call it circle1. Click OK. Once this is done, you can then give this a position. So select it and position shape. So you want it in A12. So you click OK. So this has been positioned there. If you want to delete the square or the circle, suppose if you want to delete the circle, so you say delete circle, and that will be deducted from your number of circles.